I don't know why I do these things. If you're thinking of starting a business, do a marathon first. We need a school like Language for Life more than ever that cares about the most important thing, which is the students.
This is Teacher Talk.
Oh, that's a nice title, isn't it?
We're talking about the privates, language exchange, companies, but then we started to diversify a little bit more and looked at workshops. How did this come about?
So yeah, the presentation skills workshop. I've basically been designing it, or I had been designing it for about 10 years, but it wasn't like 10 years ago I said, I'm going to design a presentation skills workshop. It just kind of happened organically over time. I think I was working at a summer school in Brighton about 10 years ago, and one of the teachers was responsible for redesigning their afternoon courses. They thought it needs a complete reset. Let's try something a bit more modern. So like that's what he was doing for weeks, maybe even months. He was just testing things out, designing lessons from absolute scratch, just from his own mind. I could try this and let's do that. And then being given the chance to try them out with students, try and test them. And I just thought this was brilliant. I thought, wow, you can do that? You don't have to, here's a book, do page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. What, we can just design lessons? Like, yeah, you can do. Yeah, as long as there's a point to it and, there's an outcome and stuff. And what was really interesting was a lot of the other teachers at the school, the full-time teachers, the contracted teachers, the experienced and qualified teachers, didn't really seem all that impressed by it. They were, because it was changed. Oh, but why are we changing? Things are fine the way they are. They just weren't willing to okay, well, let's try something new. And I think that kind of disheartened him. He was putting in a lot of work to design these lessons. I loved it. I genuinely loved it. And because of my enthusiasm, because I'd been teaching about 5 years at that point, so it's like, I love this. I'd love to be in the room when he's designing lessons and having those conversations. And he would come to me almost every day. Oh, Kane, I've tried this thing out. Would you mind if I came into your classroom and tried it with your students? Like, absolutely. And then if I had a free lesson, I'd be asking him, can I come and see your lessons? Can I come and see what's going on? He was like, yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things in the presentation skills workshop, one of the techniques came from that lesson, just from being curious and open to sort of new ideas. And then over the years, it's sort of grown and there's all of these other techniques that actually, this is what you need to be able to give a presentation. Because as I said in the workshop, what is a presentation? It's not just standing up, here are some graphs, here's some charts, here's some numbers. For me, a presentation is standing up in front of an audience, giving information, all right? And that just doesn't mean graphs and charts. It could be, like that. It could be, even as a teacher, you're standing up in front of an audience, explaining grammar rules and structures and all of that stuff. That's a presentation. A wedding, giving a wedding speech. I don't know if you've ever given them. They're nerve-wracking. Okay, so I learned all of these techniques, and then all of a sudden I realized, what started off as individual lessons is that actually we could put this together, and there's something here. It took 10 years to, just organically put it together, create this workshop, and then not only to create it, but then deliver it, which you were there to see it in person. To actually go and deliver something that's taken 10 years to create was just, it was awesome.
And at this point, did you feel like it was a step towards something bigger than just a language school?
Yeah, even with, so around this period, obviously we've got language exchange. People might say we failed. I don't feel we did fail, but we've got this idea that we'll bring back and work. So we've got something that's not just English courses. So we've got this language exchange, and we've got these workshops. And it's like, that's why I didn't want to call, when I was coming up with the name, I didn't want to call it English school or Kane school or whatever. I didn't want to have the name school in there because I didn't want to just be, or even the word English, Kane's English school. Because then you kind of pigeonholing yourself like, okay, that's all we do. Whereas Language for Life, I want it to be about different things, not just English courses. We have language exchange or workshops, because the more we talk, the more we brainstorm and come up with ideas. There's so many things that we can do. Like, there are unlimited possibilities with it. So yeah, it started to really feel like, okay, we can do whatever we want with this. We can really go for it.
No, I think, like you say, making sure there's one's school or English and pigeonholing yourself. Again, it's the ideas and the services that we could provide eventually. That obviously we've already spoke about. Obviously, may not even just be written on paper, not even developed or anything yet. But if that was the case and it was Kane School, English School, whatever, again, we wouldn't have been able to do that. We would have had to open a separate business or a separate branch of it in one way or another and not be able to put it down under Language for Life, which all the service that we have talked about all form under what we do. It's not unique or anything. It is all stuff that can be linked together.
But I just like the creative aspect of it. Like, it's like, because I've been teaching for a long time. I love teaching, I really do. But I don't see myself, teaching 20, 25, 30 hours a week forever. I can't do that and build a business. So, but sometimes, even though it's, you get new course books, different age groups, different groups in general, different students, I think sometimes there's only so many times I can teach the present perfect, or there's only so many times I can teach this grammatical structure. I don't want to become complacent with it, with the lessons. I love doing the workshop and I love exploring other avenues. So yeah, and it adds that extra excitement again, doesn't it? Something new, something fresh, a different avenue. So yeah, it's now, it looks like, okay, there is just so much we can do with Language for Life.
Things are going up. Things are going in the right direction.
What goes up?
Yes, and as a running theme of, I think, every episode so far, there's been something that has stood out as, again, a big setback in the year. Yeah. But it seems particularly...
Why change a winning formula?
Yeah, no, exactly. It seems particular this year as well because things are going so well. Companies, really well. Private... Yes, again, as you mentioned, language exchange, you could say it was a failure, but I don't see it as that.
No, it was a learning curve.
Yes. And again, it will be back.
Yeah.
Again, the workshops, Language for Life, is evolving.
I think everyone knows where this is going. But there it is.
There was something that happened, as many people may know. Obviously, at the time, you had been coming up to around 5 years in Portugal.
Yep.
And at that time, the law was that you could apply for citizenship. Please let us know what actually happened there.
Right. There is a happy ending to this. I'll just start with that. Kind of, I guess. But so yeah, when I first moved to Portugal, I never really thought about that because obviously because of Brexit and being British, it meant that I would have to apply for residency so that I could work there legally and stuff. But even then, I didn't think anything about I'm going to be here because I can get citizenship and a passport. But when I realized that, after 5 years of being a resident, you can apply. It's like, oh my God, it's brilliant. I'd love to have a European passport, especially with the business. That's going to be great. And it'd be great to be a Portuguese citizen. Mm-hmm. 3 weeks before I had been officially a resident for 5 years, the law changed to 10. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. It's kind of like it's the finish line. It's right there, and then somebody just goes, nope. And you can just imagine, like you said, everything was going so well. It really was. And then to get that news, it was just sickening because I don't know. For people have asked me like, why was it so stressful? And it was more, I don't know, because something feels so close. Okay, yeah, you can have you resident 5 years, you can have citizenship, and then all of a sudden it felt like something had taken away, right? And then also because I live in Portugal, I reside in Portugal. Listen, I'd given 5 years of my life to Portugal. I wasn't, wasn't a British guy living in Portugal because it's cheaper whilst working for a UK-based company, earning a mega salary. From previous episodes, you've heard of all of the struggles. The year before, financial struggles, even building a business, working 7 days a week. I'd given my life to Portugal, its people, working with Portuguese schools, with Portuguese companies, with Portuguese citizens. I don't want to say all, they weren't all Portuguese people, Portuguese citizens. So it felt, it just felt a bit sickening. Like, wow, what do I have to do to just have a normal year? So, long story short, I was able to get my application through just in time. Okay, because the law was slightly delayed, I was able to get my application, and my application is now being reviewed. Let's say so. It's a matter of time before it's accepted, I hope. But yeah, it was just that kind of couple of months of uncertainty afterwards, what you said, like everything was going really well, and all of a sudden now, I don't know which way is up anymore. So
again, I can imagine it being a very hard time.
Yeah, I think I should change the podcast to like teachers' setbacks or Kane's problems.
Kane's problems is more suitable.
Yeah. But Kane's yearly problem.
Just out of curiosity, what does it actually take to get a citizenship? What do you accept to do?
Well, I mean, so the law's changed, and I understand the reasons for the change in law and the new rules and stuff, which we don't need to go into. People can Google it. But I had to, obviously, you got to provide proof of residency, birth certificate, and then you've got to get things like translated and notarized. I'm in Portugal, I've got to get things from the UK, get them to this other place. Now, normally that would be fine if you had time, but I was racing against the clock because, like, literally about a month before, actually, no, the summer before, I knew I was coming up to my 5th year. Thought, what I'll do, I can just get things, take my time, I don't need to rush it, just take my time with these documents. But now I've got to get all of these things in a very short period of time, and a Portuguese language certificate. Now, it's only an A2 level. I could have already passed it. I'd been doing lessons for 2 years when I lived in Coimbra. As well as running a language exchange, I was doing my own language exchange for about 2 years as well. So my Portuguese was more than good enough to pass the exam. But it's not as though, but I needed it then. Well, guess what? There were no exams available then. I had to wait 4 months for the next exam. And again, I'm just thinking, I don't have 4 months. But still booking the exam, still practicing. So yeah, that was the final thing that I needed was the certificate. Again, I did the exam, I passed. Maybe we could do another episode talking about the CIPL exam, it's called, the Portuguese language exam. But that's what it was. I could get all of the documents. I just needed it in such a short space of time. But yeah,
again, mega frustrating.
Yeah, but we got through. We got there in the end.
Great year. Bit of a setback, but again, as you say, happy ending. It's in and it's being looked at. But you did, after all this going on, this really busy year, working constantly, only thinking about language for life, you decided to participate in a marathon.
Yeah. Yeah. When you put it like that, I don't know why I do these things. I'm a glutton for punishment. It was my second one. I'd done one a couple of years before, and where I live, again, you've seen it, Figueira da Foz, where I'm a runner, so I go out running. And you've got the ocean right there next to you. Next to the beach, you've got the ocean. It's a beautiful place to run. But I seem to have this thing even in business. Yeah, it's great. Okay, we've got one group of students. We've got one company. Fantastic. Let's get another group. Let's get another company. And it's the same thing with running. I'll run for 5K. And then the next time I go for a run, it's, okay, well, let's just do more. Rather than just sustaining something, it's like, let's do more. And then all of a sudden, it's like, let's do a marathon. Which was just silly because I didn't really have the time to train for it. But I compare doing a marathon to having a business, because I've listened to other sort of successful people and other podcasts, and the question is, what does it take to have a business? What does it take to become an entrepreneur? And I always say, if you want to know if you're ready to have a business or become an entrepreneur, do a marathon, because it's that thing we just said about getting a company. People see it when you've got a company, right? People see you doing the marathon. Nobody sees all the work beforehand. The training is it's relentless because you've got to do 20, 25, 30 kilometer runs for weeks, even months before to be properly ready. Well, that takes a lot of time. 25K run is 2.5, 3 hours. And then you don't come back thinking, well, hey, I'm all energized and fresh. You're pretty tired, but you've got to work all day. And when you're burning that many calories, you've got to put them back in your body. It's so the training, what it takes to actually get it across the finish line of a marathon is very similar to a business. Yeah, everybody wants a business and the success that it brings or whatever financial freedom it brings. But you know what? It's grueling to get to that point. And if you're thinking of starting a business, do a marathon first. And if you can do that, you can probably build a business. Because then that mentality, that resilience, there were days, I think you would agree with me. There are days that we wake up and we think, I just don't feel energized to do any work today.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But we do it anyway. And it's just, there were several mornings, I'm a keen runner, but there were several mornings you wake up at 6 a.m. knowing that you've got to run 25, 30 kilometers. Because if you don't, you're not going to be prepared for the marathon. You've got to do that. And then knowing that when you get back, you've got a full day of work ahead of you. And you've got to do it not just once, but again and again and again and again. If you can do that, it's the same as a business. It's not all fun and games. It's not all enjoyable. I mean, I don't know. I don't ask for a specific number, but how many times have you woken up and think, you know what?
every time I open my eyes. No, not that bad, but no, it is. There is plenty of times where you wake up and obviously feel like that. But again, you just get up and do it. It needs to be done. That's what needs to be done for the next progression, for the evolution. For it to evolve, basically.
Because if you don't do it,
we're not going to grow.
You don't. Exactly.
That's what it's all about.
You don't progress. And it's the same thing. So I said, doing a marathon is a far more feasible thing to do rather than just jumping in and starting a business. Because, I don't know, some people might have massive overheads and they might invest thousands, tens of thousands. Do a marathon. It only costs you a few hundred to buy the shoes and pay for the event. If you can do that, then you're ready. That's my advice.
To see it through and continue. No,
exactly.
I like that. Now, as we've seen, Language for Life is on a trajectory. It's going up and up. Again, services being added, obviously, companies, private, workshops, language exchange again eventually, and many other services to come. What's next?
Good question. More. This is the really, really fun part, the really exciting part. I've taught for years and I've worked for schools, and it's great going into a school and you've got everything set up and ready for your classrooms. Somebody's organised the register. All you have to do is pick it up, do your lesson, go home. I love that. But what I love right now is just building things, being part of that, dealing with companies, dealing with individuals. I love all of that. And I want more of it. And you've asked sort of a few times about, did you ever feel like, okay, maybe this isn't a good idea, maybe sort of don't go ahead with Language for Life. But it's just, after everything I've learned, all the schools that I've worked for, I just feel like we need a school like Language for Life more than ever. There are great schools out there, but for every good school, there's a bad school. And I want to take everything that I've learned over the years, and even what we've learned together over the last few years, and just put that into Language for Life and create a genuinely great school, great company that cares about the most important thing, which is the students. And, I started teaching in 2012, went to Vietnam. I went there really just because I wanted to travel. Somebody gave me an opportunity to teach. Whether I deserved it or not is another question. But somebody gave me an opportunity. I'd like to think that I repaid that opportunity over the years. I want us to do the same thing. I want Language for Life to give opportunities to new young teachers that are dedicated and passionate to providing a great service, to great lessons for students. In a world of AI where we could just clone myself and I could have 10 clones, which would be not good for anybody. We could do that. But for what? For financial reasons? Because we can get some money from it? I just don't see that as any value whatsoever. I want to provide that human approach. I want to give opportunities and just be the best. I really do. And that's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to be next year. It's going to take us years. But as long as every single day, week, month, year, we just think, okay, let's just be that little bit better. Let's improve.
1%, like we said.
That 1%. And, 5, 10, 20, 50 years from now, why not Language for Life being on the side of a building in every major city on the planet? And somebody's doing a podcast 50 years from now talking about us being one of the big schools. But not just the big, but just a school that really cares. This job, this industry has given me so much, and I'd love to repay that. So that's what's next.
On the next episode, we flip the story. How I nearly started teaching with Kane, but life took a different turn. This time, it's my side of the Language for Life journey.